The host of the TV show Element Kopek Novak enthusiastically tells his viewers about the benefits of using American robots developed by OmniCorp Corporation to maintain law and order. Despite the fact that drones help bring freedom to almost every corner of the world, Americans are still afraid to use them in their own country. So to show the American people how useful these machines can be, a camera crew from Tehran contacts the studio. Correspondent Kelly Perkins is reporting live on a mop-up operation, when suddenly a suicide attack is caught in the frame, which quickly and successfully stops the fighting machines. An enthusiastic Novak does not miss an opportunity to praise the work of drones and asks his audience why America still suffers from a robot phobia. The next day, Detective Alex Murphy tells the police chief about his observations made during the mission to catch the dangerous criminal Antoine Whelan. Together with his partner Jack Lewis, he managed to figure out that the bandits somehow ended up with all the weapons from the vault. Later, pretending to be customers, Alex and Jack tried to approach Whelan, but someone warned him on the phone, and the criminal immediately fled, giving the order to eliminate the cops. As a result of the shooting, Alex's partner was seriously wounded, and Murphy comes to the conclusion that the police themselves supply Whelan with weapons. After listening to his colleague Karen, promises that he will deal with the case personally. At the same time, a meeting with Raymond Saulars, the head of OmniCorp Corporation, takes place in Washington. The entrepreneur wants to introduce his robots into the USA for law enforcement, and use them instead of the living policemen. However, Senator Hubert Dreyfus shares the opinion of 72% of Americans who do not agree with the soulless machine pulling the trigger, and approves the act prohibiting the use of drones on U.S. territory. Later at OmniCorp headquarters, executives calculate losses due to the past law and then come up with a new plan to change public opinion. They will create a brand new product that combines a human brain and the latest advances in robotics. Sellers wastes no time in convincing Dennet Norton, a scientist working for the corporation, to join his ambitious new project, and within a couple of hours the team is actively reviewing the personal files of police officers who could volunteer. Meanwhile, two corrupt cops from the precinct where Alex works meet Antoine Whelan and together plan to kill Murphy, as his investigation could interfere with their criminal cases. While visiting his partner Jack in the hospital, one of Whelan's accomplices planted a bomb in his car. In the evening, unaware of the insidious plot of his colleagues, Alex returns home and spends time with his family, when suddenly his car alarm goes off. The man went outside to turn it off, and as soon as the car door opened, there was an explosion. As a result, Alex received fourth-degree burns with more than 80% of his entire body affected. The man had no chance of survival. Dr. Dennet Norton honestly warned his grief-stricken wife Clara that if a miracle were to happen and Alex were to live, he would be paralyzed from the waist down, blind in one eye and completely deaf. But the OmniCorp Corporation could give him a new normal life, if only a woman would agree to Alex's participation in their new project. 3 months later, Norton wakes up Alex in one of the laboratories of the corporation on the territory of China. Unwilling to listen to the doctor and accept the new reality, Alex throws Norton to the floor and escapes from the laboratory. Realizing that he will not be able to convince the fugitive to return, the scientists order the medical staff to disable the cyber body Murphy. Having returned to the laboratory, Alex calms down a little and asks to see what is left of him after the explosion. Seeing only his hand, lungs and head, Alex in despair asks Norton to take him off life support, but the scientists urge Alex to think of his wife Clara and son David, who love him very much and are looking forward to his return. Resigned, the next day Murphy undergoes various tests and procedures, then learns how to handle his new body in a simulator. Later, the policeman looks up his information on the internet, and is dismayed to discover that the Detroit police have dropped all charges against Antoine Whelan for the attempt on his life due to a lack of evidence. After a while, Norton flies to corporate headquarters, where he presents the results of his work to the head of Sellers. However, the entrepreneur does not like the fact that due to the human factor, Alex is much slower to make a decision than any other combat drone. So Sellers orders Norton to get Alex to act just like the machine by the release date, while stating that he doesn't care how the scientists do it. Back in China, Norton performs a little surgery on Alex's brain and redesigns his cyber body slightly, making it pure black. Sometime later, Sellers arrives in China in person to evaluate the results of the work done, and Alex demonstrates to him his skills in combat with ordinary drones. After the operation, Alex's emotions no longer affect his reactions, and the software takes over full control of his body during combat, so the cyborg's efficiency has increased manifold. Saulars is thrilled, and now he can't wait to present his new robot policeman to the public. When all the tests were successfully completed, Alex could finally go home and see his family. However, his new body required special care, so after a brief and slightly awkward interaction with his beloved son, the man was forced to return to the lab. The next day, residents from all over Detroit gathered in front of the police department to support Detective Alex Murphy. At the same time, Norton downloaded the entire Detroit police database into Alex's brain, along with a complete video archive of the crimes committed. Now the cyborg system will identify offenders automatically and give Alex their location. When the man saw the video from the scene where he almost died, his emotions started to run high, which led to overloading the system. In order to bring Alex to his senses, Norton had to install dopamine and noradrenaline absorption modules, thus depriving him of his emotions and ability to feel anything. As a result, when he sees Clara and David, Alex feels no emotion and passes by as if he were a stranger. Outside, RoboCop scans the assembled crowd and quickly finds the culprit wanted for murder, which took Alex less than a minute to apprehend. Despite the cyborg's instant popularity, Dennet Norton insists on bringing Alex back to the lab, as his latest research shows that something has gone wrong with his system. However, Sellers does not want everyone to find out that he released a defective product. So he cancels all interviews and decides to limit Alex's communication with his wife. Nevertheless, the new Alex Murphy returned to service in the police department. In a short time, he alone managed to shut down several drug laboratories, detain many dangerous criminals, and generally reduce the crime rate in Detroit by 80%. His success was discussed by Pat Novak in his television show, giving interesting statistics. Now, according to an anonymous question, the opinions of Americans on the Raymond Salars is confident that 100 cyborgs like Alex can keep the states safe. But Senator Dreyfus remained opposed to the use of robots. His remarks prompt Novak to ask his viewers, does the U.S. Senate support crime? Soon losing her patience, Clara stops her husband in the street and begs him to talk to her son. According to her, David is under constant stress and has nightmares all the time. However, Alex silently drives away, ignoring his wife. After a few moments, however, he looks at the CCTV footage from the school grounds and notices his son's depressed state. There he scans the place where the attempt on his life was made, and Norton and his team watch him. Suddenly, the chief of police bursts into the laboratory and demands that RoboCop be turned off immediately, as he is breaking protocol in her opinion, but the scientist ignores the woman. Having analyzed the data and simulated the moment of the explosion, Alex comes to the conclusion that David saw everything that happened to him, so he experiences a strong shock. Meanwhile, Alex changes his own priority target and from now on will not rest until he finds Waylon and exacts revenge on him. He goes back to an arms dealer named Jerry White, thanks to whom he learned that Waylon is trading weapons from the police vault, and beats him to the location of the criminal's personal driver. Alex rushes to Valen's lair, but shortly before he arrives, someone warns the bandit by phone and he and his gang ambush the RoboCop. Valen himself knocks out the lights to somehow limit the visibility for the cop, but a couple of minutes later Alex bursts into the building on his motorcycle and successfully kills the bandits one by one using the thermal imaging camera. One of the shooters manages to hit Murphy in the head, but the protective helmet saves the detective and he eliminates the remaining criminals, including Antoine Valen himself. When all was over, Alex scanned the fingerprints on the weapon and found that some of them belonged to his colleagues from the police department. Back at the station, Alex and his ex-partner Jack were able to expose the two corrupt cops, providing audio and video evidence of their connection to Valen. Realizing they would soon be found out, one of them tried to shoot Alex in the station, but RoboCop was faster. Shaking with fear, the second traitor surrenders Alex to his boss, who helped steal the guns from the warehouse and give them to the criminals. A furious Alex goes to beat up the police chief, but at the worst possible moment, he is remotely cut off by Rick Metex, the military strategist at OmniCorp who Sellers secretly asked to spy on RoboCop. The public appreciated that Alex could uncover a snake's nest inside the police department, and a couple of days later the Senate launched a vote to repeal the Dreyfus Act to ban the use of drones. During the vote, however, Alex's wife, Clara, told the media that the corporation forbade her from seeing her husband, yes, and the experiment itself was inhumane. Raymond begins to fear that Alex, who has uncovered his own assassination attempt, will sooner or later realize that the head of OmniCorp was dishonest with him, so he orders Matex to get rid of RoboCop. Meanwhile, Norton penetrates the laboratory, where the corporation's security service is already at work, and disables Alex's transmitter, which Matex used to disable him. Meanwhile, Alex learns from Norton that Salars wants to kill him and rushes to the corporation's headquarters. Rick spots him on the road and informs the chief of the danger. Soon Alex bursts into the guarded building and engages in combat with heavy combat vehicles. One of the robots clamps his arm and he has to shoot it off to free himself. The shot knocks Murphy down, when suddenly his partner Jack comes to his aid and shields his colleague. Knowing that the machines will not shoot an unarmed man, thanks to Jack, Alex managed to get to the helipad where Sellers was waiting for a helicopter. Murphy tries to arrest the entrepreneur for the attempted assassination of a police officer. However, Sellers has a code red bracelet on his arm that prohibits the cyborg from approaching him. Raymond points the gun toward Clara and David, and that is enough for Alex to overcome the prohibition of the program and shoot Sellers. The movie ends with Norton restoring Alex's cyber body and allowing his family to meet him, while the President of the United States supported the Dreyfus Act to prohibit the use of robots.